The situation in Ukraine continues to cause concern. Negotiations on the settlement of the conflict in Donbas are still stalled. July 6th and 7th this year, online meetings of the contact group and its working subgroups were held, which again ended with a zero result. The main reason is the position of the Ukrainian delegation, which has become even more destructive than at previous meetings. Although it would seem much more to divert attention from their own sabotage of the Minsk agreements. Ukrainian representatives make openly provocative statements in public space. Recently, one of the members of the Ukrainian delegation to the contact group, A. Arstovich, stated that the agreements reached in Minsk allegedly were not binding and were only the goodwill of the parties. According to him, in 2015 the UN Security Council did not approve, but only welcomed the Minsk package of measures as a kind of roadmap. This is not the first amazing discovery of our Ukrainian colleagues, but bright. It is also surprising why the Ukrainian colleagues translated the obligations clearly indicated in the official languages of the United Nations as greeting. I would like, quoting Resolution 2202, to cite as an example the words and phrases that are still recorded there. To the surprise of the Ukrainian delegation, it says exactly approves, not welcomes, endorses, English. It is also recorded in French, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, if Russian is not enough for them. The Ukrainian delegation encroached on the norms of international law not only in its interpretation, but in misleading its own public about the language of the UN Security Council resolution. Another way to divert attention from Kiev's sabotage of the Minsk agreements is to consistently ignore all kinds of initiatives. We have already heard ideas from Kiev about a referendum on Donbas, the transfer of negotiations from Minsk, and the involvement of the United States and Great Britain in the Normandy format. There were many different undertakings. Another one appeared the other day at President Zelensky. He voiced it, as always, not in dialogue with partners, but in the media, to create an additional, parallel to the Normandy, format of negotiations. All this demonstrates that Ukraine is deliberately leading the settlement process to a dead end, does it intentionally, purposefully and consistently. Meanwhile, Kiev continues to pull new forces to the contact line in Donbas, and to tighten the economic and humanitarian blockade of the region, worsening the already difficult situation of its residents. Unfortunately, the Ukrainian authorities do not fulfill not only the agreements on Donbas and international obligations, but also the norms of domestic legislation. This is confirmed by studies of a number of Ukrainian centers dedicated to the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Ukraine, which was celebrated last week. According to their estimate, out of 161 articles of the Basic Law, 125 are systematically violated, that is, 78%. The guarantees of the use and protection of Russian and other languages are ignored. The rights of national minorities, the prohibition of interference in religious affairs, provisions on the protection of private property and personal integrity are violated. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that these are not Russian, but internal Ukrainian assessments. Of particular concern is the rampant neo-Nazism in Ukraine. Now Ukrainian neo-Nazis, feeling impunity, have begun preparations for the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, which was created on October 14, 1942. Their goal is to show the continuity of old and new nationalists, who are called fighters for the independence of Ukraine. The draft resolution has already been submitted to the Verkhovna Rada. It was sponsored by all factions, with the exception of the opposition platform For Life. A number of activities have have been proposed, including the renaming of streets and squares in honor of the fascist collaborators, the erection of new monuments to them. It was recommended to President V. Zelensky to return the title of Hero of Ukraine to such odious characters, standing outside the law and morality, as Bandera and Arshukvich. The continued connivance of such tendencies, everything is developing in full swing, on the part of the Kiev authorities and the international community, can have the most serious consequences not only for Ukraine, but also for other countries of Europe and the world. We have done earlier, and intend to continue our policy in this direction. We call on international organizations and foreign partners to seek from the Ukrainian authorities to comply with their obligations to resolve the conflict in Donbas and observe fundamental human rights and freedoms as soon as Kiev has taken on these obligations. Recently, the Ukrainian authorities adopted a law on indigenous peoples, according to which Russians are not classified as an autochthonous population of the country. At the same time, the Russification has been going on in Ukraine for many years and even decades with varying degrees of intensity. What instruments of soft power is Russia now using in response to this? And does the Foreign Ministry plan to change its policy towards Ukraine so as not to lose influence and connection with the Russian-speaking population of the country? It seems to me that you can endlessly answer the question of what is being done, evaluate the results and results, argue, etc.
Давайте я попробую ответить сейчас кратко, но мне кажется, что, в принципе, мы можем с вами на эту тему еще отдельно поговорить, потому что она бескрайняя и безбрежная. Вот упомянутая вами законодательная
The
мера носит,
legislative measure
безусловно,
you mentioned is
дискриминационный
undoubtedly
характер, особенно
discriminatory.
учитывая все этносы,
All
отнесенные
ethnic
Киевом к
groups
коренным
classified
народам.
by Kiev
Так вот, они проживают в
as
российском Крыму и
indigenous peoples live in the Russian
пользуются там
Crimea
всеми
and enjoy all the rights there
всем
regarding
набором
language,
прав касательно и
culture,
языка,
and
и
traditions.
культуры, и традиций и
By
так
such
далее.
actions, the Kiev
Если
authorities are
кратко
trying to
оценивать, опять
divert
же,
the
вот
attention of
эту
the international
законодательную
community
инициативу, то подобными действиями киевские
from the
власти
flagrant
пытаются
violation of the
отвлечь
rights of
внимание
national
международного
minorities
сообщества от просто вопиющего нарушения прав
and the
национальных
Russian-speaking
меньшинств
population in
русскоязычного
their
населения
country.
непосредственно у себя в стране.
The
Но
worst thing
самое
is that a
ужасное,
policy of
что проводится
segregation,
политика сегрегации,
squeezing out the
выдавливания
population,
населения,
reprisals
расправы
against
с
the unwanted,
неугодными, запугивания
intimidation is
и
being
весь тот
pursued,
набор,
the whole set of
который
actions and political
действий
attitudes,
и политических
which in the
установок,
civilized
которые в
world
цивилизованном
is
мире
recognized as being outside
признаны
the framework of law,
находящимся за рамками
morality, and ethics.
права, морали и этики. Мы неоднократно
We have
привлекали к этому
repeatedly
внимание
drawn the
международных
attention of
организаций, мы
international
ставим этот вопрос
organizations
в
to
ООН,
this,
ОБСЕ,
raised
Совете
this
Европы.
issue in the UN,
Мы
OSCE,
добиваемся от
Council of
Киева
Europe.
выполнения
We
его
seek from
обязательств
Kiev to
в рамках
fulfill its
существующих международных
obligations
правовых
within the framework of existing
документов. А
international
что
legal
касается
documents.
мягкой силы,
As
то
for
у
soft
нас
power,
работает
Rosatrodnichestvo
в
and
этом
non-governmental
направлении
organizations are working
и
in this area.
Россотрудничество, и неправительственные
A
организации,
lot is being
и
done.
много что предпринимается.